Yesterday, we got to some sound from Joe Sloan, LSU offensive coordinator, who met with the media. And we didn't get to all of it. And there were some things he hit on that I thought were relevant. Yesterday, we talked a lot about LSU's tight ends. We've discussed the running game a little bit over the last couple of days as well. But obviously, when you talk to the offensive coordinator, I think it's relevant to talk about the quarterbacks. And LSU is in a very, very strong spot entering the year at quarterback because you've got one of the nation's top passers returning for his 5th year. You can have whatever opinion you want to have about Garrett Nussmeier's overall play last year. A discussion you can't have is that LSU is compromised or playing from behind at quarterback. Like, there may be a guy or two in the SEC that you might look to in front of Garrett Nussmeier if you're an LSU fan. I'm not real confident that I would do that. I mean, DJ Lagway seems primed for a strong year after the end of last year. A lot of people were really high on Arch Manning, obviously. Lenora Sellers closed out last year very, very strongly. But you want Nico Iamaleava? I feel like LSU's in a really good spot at quarterback, and I think that that Joe Sloan agrees. But it's not just Garrett Nussmeier. He kind of likes the way this entire thing looks. And in this day and age, you got to realize it's unrealistic to have 4 guys ready to go at quarterback at a given time. Like, that just doesn't happen in this day and age in college athletics because quarterbacks, more so than any position in collegiate athletics, transfer. But LSU's starting from an advantageous spot with Garrett Nussmeier at the front of the line. Michael Van Buren comes in after a half a year as starter at Mississippi State. You still got, on the roster, you've got Colin Hurley, and then Jawan Johnson has moved over. So you look at LSU, and they feel like they're in pretty good spot as far as the quarterback room goes, and Joe Sloan spoke to the entirety of that position group.
Excited about the room. I think Mike's done a great job. He's had his learning the offense, right? That's been a big piece for him. When he gets comfortable, he got comfortable there midway through, played really, really well. Then we got in some new situations, right? Now we get back in those same situations. Now he's playing well again, right? I think he's doing really well. He's battling through, and he's working on the things he needs to work on. So I couldn't be more excited about what Mike and the growth he's made. And then Jawan and some of the different things that he brings and what he's done in some different unique situations and packages. I think he can help our football team. So excited with the group.
So that's the totality of the group. Let's take them one by one. And, of course, you start with a starter, and that's Garrett Nussmeier, who, everybody's going to say this until they play on Labor Day. Like, look at the jump from year 1 to year 2 to that 5th year. Zach Muttenberger to his 5th year, huge jump. Joe Burrow to his 5th year, huge jump. Jaden Daniels to his 5th year, huge jump. And that'll be the talking point, and that's fine. I think it's a lot, but that'll be the talking point to put on Garrett Nussmeier's feet. So how about Joe Sloan, who works with him every day, thinking about going into his 2nd year as a starter?
Garrett was prepared to play, but then there are certain things that he needed to go through that you can only get preparation by playing. You can only get the experience by playing. And I think he's learned from that. This offseason has been able to be a little bit different because now he's going back, and when he's studying, he's not just studying his practice tape or maybe our tape and what could happen. He's looking at specifically some stuff that he needs to improve on. And I think he's been really intentional. Really, some of our staff did a great job of breaking some different things down for him so he could really see some individual things and he could take back control of those situations. Whether it be something technical with a throw, whether it be the understanding of a defense, whether it be how we're playing, whether it be our footwork, all different kinds of things. And being able to really be intentional, take control of that, and make those corrections. And the big thing now is taking that to practice. And really, a lot of it he's been doing a great job with. And then there's still some things, right? We're still a work in progress. And I think he's done an excellent job of attacking that. I couldn't be more proud of him.
When I wrote a piece on LouisianaSports.net about Garrett Nussmeier's interceptions midway through the year last year, and without rehashing all of them, because they're distant memories to a lot of you at this point, but you remember that they happened more frequently than you wanted, probably. The general point that I landed on when going through the interceptions was it was not inaccuracy. It was more so a couple bad decisions and then some just flat misreads where he didn't see somebody. And I think that with playing time and with reps, it's easier to develop your ability to read a defense than it is to strengthen your arm or to just get way more accurate. Like, I just don't know if Jalen Milroe is ever going to sit back there and pick somebody apart with his precision passing. I think Garrett Nussmeier is more likely to make the improvement of understanding defenses a little bit better once he's seen them more times. And so that improvement, I think, is reasonable to expect entering his second year. I mean, I'll just go to a couple generally, like the decision-making of Garrett Nussmeier to throw the ball out of his own end zone right after LSU had gotten an interception against Ole Miss and immediately turned the ball back over. Like, that was a bad decision. The decision he made rolling to his left in College Station with a 2-score lead in the second half to make that throw back across the field and have A&M intercepted for their first turnover that they immediately turned into a touchdown. Like, that's a bad decision. And that's something that can come with growth and experience. It's not going to be his first time on the road in front of 100,000 this year. Not going to be his first year starting. He's gotten to see all of that on tape. I feel like those strides are really, really reasonable to suggest. And Garrett's got the benefit now of going into this year with the same offensive coordinator and the same head coach. And he's worked with Joe Sloan and Brian Kelly his entire career. Like, it's years and years now that they've built that relationship. And so Joe Sloan spoke about that dynamic where you've got a guy that's been his quarterback coach now for 4 years and his head coach.
Garrett's fabulous. I've enjoyed coaching him every year in all his different situations and how he's grown, how he's matured, and just the man he's becoming, right? Who he's becoming not only as a football player, but as a person. You know, I've really seen his leadership. I think his confidence and who he is as a person, just his leadership carry over. This year, he was always a leader, but I think he's done an excellent job of that, just really being organic, being real, being genuine, and I think the guys are gravitating to it. It's been good to see. It's been a lot of fun to see for him.
The biggest off-season news that LSU got was Garrett Nussmeier coming back because that sets the roster up. But with that announcement, you realize that, like, it's going to be difficult to keep your quarterbacks around. And you kind of thought Bryce Underwood was next, and then he bails the 11th hour for the cash, and you realize that you got to do some backloading at quarterback because you don't have the depth that you did have. You lost AJ Swan. He left. Not that he was the answer, but like he was an SEC starter at one point in his career. So how are you going to be able to go into the transfer portal and get a quarterback who knows he's not going to start but does want to be a part of the program? And they got Michael Van Buren after a year, more than half a year as a starter at Mississippi State, 8 games, to come in and sit. And I think that's impressive that LSU was able to pull that off. And Sloan talked about what attracted LSU and that staff to Michael Van Buren.
You know, Mike obviously played extremely well, did a lot of great things at Mississippi State last year. So when we had the opportunity to add him to our roster, we couldn't have been more excited. When he gets comfortable, when you've really seen it, we've seen it a lot this spring, his comfortability in the pocket is exceptional. I mean, it is exceptional. And I think that's a really huge talent for him. And then he can drive the football now. He can touch every piece of the field with his arm. I've really liked his growth. Some of the things that we do, he hasn't necessarily done, but he's a quick learner. Once he does it once and as he feels it, he's been able to make the adjustments and make the growth. I think both Tim Rattay and Trey Holtz and some of the different things they've been able to do. And that's a great part when you have great coaches. We're able to kind of split off and really focus on what the individual guys need. And I think that's helped Mike a ton.
There's so much to take from Michael Van Buren's freshman year. He was under a first-time head coach in Jeff Levy at a new spot. He was a freshman. Blake Shapen goes down a month into the season. He's thrust in there. They didn't stop anybody the whole year on defense, so you're constantly playing offense with the idea that your defense is going to give up 50 points, and you're playing these ridiculously brutal games at Texas, at Georgia. You're just playing really, really difficult opponents week in and week out, and his numbers were pretty good. Were they eye-popping? No. Were they great? No. Was some of it impressive given that he was a freshman thrust into duty? Yeah. He's got some talent. He's a 4-star recruit, and I think this is as good an ad as you could have hoped for if you're LSU, considering that Nussmeier was coming back. If Nussmeier's not coming back, you might be able to grab a little bit of a bigger name to come in and be your starter immediately. But for LSU to get an SEC starting quarterback to come sit on the bench, I thought was really good. Speaking of backup quarterbacks, Jawan Johnson, who started his LSU career at Star and then moved to running back on a whim and spent all the season there, and now he's back at quarterback. And Joe Sloan talked about what he could potentially add to LSU.
Jawan wanted to come back to quarterback. I couldn't be more excited to have him. You know, he's obviously a different style of quarterback than maybe the other two guys. You're going to have to respect his feet. And, you know, just working through him, I think you've seen his growth from a passing standpoint. He throws a good ball, but in terms of his read progressions and doing the things he needs to do, and then, you know, just his footwork and commanding the huddle, I think he has great leadership skills. And obviously he's been electric with the ball in his hand. Made a couple big plays when we've been in live tackle situations. So I think he's been exciting. He's been fun to coach. He's attentive, and he's getting after it.
One thing to be aware of with Jawan Johnson, when we go to practice, he does not wear a no-contact jersey. He is in the jersey like the rest of them, which means he can get hit. Now, they're not bringing guys to the ground in most of the periods, so it's more of a thud situation. But you look at the other two quarterbacks that are out there, they've got no contacts on. Jawan Johnson doesn't. And he ripped off a 50-yard run on Saturday when we were there, weaving through. Now, it's a third-team defense, and that needs to be mentioned. But, like, that's the kind of explosive playmaker he can be with the ball in his hands. Y'all heard my takes on the quarterback situation when Jawan Johnson moved, and we found that out last month. And I said, look, I don't like it. Because I don't think that if Jawan Johnson is being asked to play quarterback for 2 weeks with his team, that's going to go very well in the SEC. But if you've got a package for him and you feel like that he can help you develop your running game by being another option, I'm okay with that part. And it sounds like that's part of, at least, what they're doing right now. So you feel good about Nussmeier. Van Buren's about as good a backup as you're going to nab, and then Jawan Johnson brings a completely different dynamic. I think it's a really healthy spot that LSU's quarterback situation is in. You understand that you're going to have to add to it next year after Nussmeier moves on, but you cross that bridge when you get to it this time and age with that position. There's always going to be a quarterback out there. You just got to make sure that you go get them. So I think LSU's in a good spot with the quarterback, and we'll leave that discussion right there. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.